"Are you deaf, old man?" I said. "Step forward for the scanner." The voice was sharp, laced with the kind of impatient arrogance that only youth and a freshly pressed uniform can bestow. Lieutenant Cade Jennings tapped a polished boot on the pristine concrete, his arms crossed over a chest puffed with unearned authority. Before him stood a man who looked as though he'd wandered in from another era, an old tweed jacket worn soft at the elbows, hanging loosely on a frame made frail by the long, slow erosion of time. His hair was a wisp of white, his skin a fine parchment of wrinkles, but his eyes were startlingly clear, steady blue. They held the young lieutenant's gaze without fear, without anger, with a patience as deep and ancient as a mountain lake. The old man, Samuel Corbin, held out a simple cream-colored envelope. Inside was a personal invitation to the dedication ceremony of the brand-new Special Operations Combat Training Center at Fort Hadley, and tucked alongside it was a small typewritten note on official letterhead. "It says right here," Samuel said, his voice a low, calm rumble, "that I have a waiver for the electronic screening. Medical reasons." Jennings let out a short, derisive laugh. "A waiver? Sir, this is a Tier 1 military installation, not a public library. Everyone goes through the scanner. No exceptions. It's protocol." He gestured dismissively at the note. "Probably some aide's mistake. Now are you going to comply, or are you going to make this difficult?" A small line of guests, mostly high-ranking officers and decorated veterans, was beginning to form behind them, murmurs rippling through the queue as they watched a young, overzealous officer dressing down an elderly civilian, an uncomfortable but not uncommon sight. Samuel didn't raise his voice. He simply stood his ground, a small, unmovable stone in the path of a rushing stream. "The waiver is not a mistake, Lieutenant. I have internal material from old injuries. The machine isn't good for it." Jennings's lip curled into a smirk as he leaned in, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial, mocking tone that was somehow louder and more insulting than a shout. "Old injuries, huh? Let me guess. A hip replacement from slipping in the bathtub? A pacemaker? Look, Grandpa, I appreciate you wanting to feel important today, but we have real security concerns. Now for the last time, step through the scanner or I'll be forced to escort you from the premises." The word Grandpa hung in the crisp morning air, sharp and ugly. Samuel's steady gaze didn't waver, but something deep inside him shifted. The crisp snap of the flag overhead, caught by a sudden gust of wind, sounded for a fleeting moment like a canvas tent ripping in a gale. And the sharp metallic click of Jennings, adjusting the holster on his hip, was not the sound of modern polymer and steel, but the cold, final sound of a bolt being slammed home on a Mosin Nagant rifle, echoing through a frozen forest of skeletal birch trees. He wasn't at Fort Hadley anymore. He was 21 years old, lying in the snow, the biting Korean wind stealing the breath from his lungs, the world's shades of white and gray. The only color the crimson stain spreading from Corporal Jensen's chest, melting a small dark circle in the pristine snow. The click of the bolt had been the last sound Jensen ever heard, etched into Samuel's memory as a permanent scar on his soul. He could feel the phantom weight of his own rifle, the stock cold against his cheek, the smell of gun oil and pine needles filling his nostrils, the gnawing emptiness in his stomach that had been his constant companion for weeks. And he remembered the faces of the boys beside him, their eyes wide with a terror they were all trying so hard to hide. "Sir, are you even listening to me?" Jennings's voice sliced through the 67-year-old memory, dragging Samuel back to the present. The sun was warm on his face, the trees had green leaves, the war was over for most people. Samuel blinked slowly, the ghost of the frozen wind dissipating. "I'm listening, son," he said, his voice quieter than before. "I'm telling you, I cannot go through that machine." From her post just inside the security checkpoint, Sergeant Eva Rostova watched the exchange with a growing sense of unease. She was a career NCO, a woman who had learned to read people with the same precision she used to field her rifle. She saw the lieutenant, a classic butterbar, all spit polish and regulations, high on his own authority. And she saw the old man. He looked like anyone's grandfather, unassuming and gentle. But there was something else there. It was in his posture. He wasn't stooped with weakness, but settled like